Hello there, you're now with me, Hendy Gui, and this is TVS Nightline. Without further ado, let's dive into today's topics. As Sarawak prepares to enter the endemic phase, the state government is mulling over a review to ease its current entry restrictions. Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg said the review is pending approval from the Minister of Health once the COVID-19 situation in the state reaches the endemic phase.
Perkara yang saya nak tekankan di sini ialah we have to live with the COVID. Apabila kita dah siap ini, sekarang ini jangkitannya dari sudut number agak tinggi bagi kita 3,000 lebih. Hari ini lebih kurang 3,700. Tapi kebanyakannya adalah kategori 1 yang tidak bergejala. Dan kalau ini keadaannya, ia tidak membahaya.
He added, once the state reaches the endemic phase, individuals have to be responsible and follow the standard operating procedures or SOPs strictly. In spite of the high vaccination rate in Sarawak, he cautioned that it will take time for the state to move into the endemic phase as planning and strategies are still being laid out. At present, Abang Johari said the existing SOPs are still in effect, including the 14-day quarantine for those entering the state.
The domestic tourism sector in the state is set to reopen as Sarawak enters the endemic state phase. This was announced by Sarawak Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Datuk Abdul Karim Rahman Hamzah.
Well, we have got a number of programs which we have delayed, which we are going to launch, if I'm not mistaken, in a week or two. It will be just like what you hear in West Malaysia. Langkawi has already opened up. We will be doing the same thing.
Abdul Karim, who is also the Minister of Youth and Sports, also hoped that the state's revenue will see an increase again once the tourism sector in Sarawak reopens. He was confident that the 100% vaccination target by the end of October 2021 can be achieved to provide the necessary protection for Malaysians. He advised the people to be ready and prepared to live with COVID-19 during the endemic phase later. Now, youth aged 18 to 21 years old are seen as already mature and ready to elect their own representatives to be their voices in Parliament and state assemblies. Parti Pesaka Bumiputra Bersatu PBB Information Chief Datuk Idris Buang said this possibility can become a reality if the motion to allow them to vote in the next general election is passed in Parliament.
Saya ingat kalau SPR ready, kalau pendaftarannya ready, should be very good. Kerana orang 18 ke atas sudah matang sekarang. Bukannya 18 macam saya dulu. 18 saya dulu lagi mikir apa nak dimakan hari ini. What food to put on the table. Now 18, food already on the table by their father.
He said UNDI 18 is an important issue for the young people to express their wishes through the ballot papers. Those aged between 10 and 21 years old should also be allowed to give their views so that they can decide the destiny of the country that they will inherit in the future.
Are they ready with, with the right knowledge to vote? That is another question. But I'm sure they know what they want. So now is a question of how we guide our young also. Not the age of 18 plus. We don't have to wait. We have to tell them right from when they are 7 plus.
The construction of the Sarawak-SABAHLINK Road or SSLR project is expected to begin this month and scheduled to be completed by 2026. Minister of Works Datuk Sri Fadila Yusof said the first phase project under his ministry involves the construction of a 77-kilometre road from the town of Lawas to Long Lopeng.
The same outcome is expected on the completion of the Sarawak-SABAHLINK Road, SSLR, whereby it will increase the level of comfort and safety for road users in traversing the interiors of Sarawak, who are currently using logging roads to move around. It is envisaged that the SSLR will also create wider opportunities for economic tourism and agro-tourism for its surrounding rural communities and providing easier access for necessities such as education and healthcare.
Fadilah also mentioned that the first phase of the Pan-Borneo Highway has achieved 70% completion in Sarawak and 56% in Sabah. He reiterated that the completion involves a length of 786 kilometers, including the construction of a bridge from Teluk Melano to Miri and an additional 706 kilometers from Sindumin to Tawau, Sabah.
Another important infrastructure project in the pipeline is the upgrading of the road from Persimpangan Kuala Baram to CIQ Sungai Tujuh Miri, Sarawak, which is expected to be completed by 2025. This project serves as the connection of the Pan-Borneo Highway Sarawak, which ends at Kuala Baram intersection. The outcome of this project is crucial, as it will be able to cater to the high traffic volume, as well as to provide a much more convenient and safer link for road users, as this is the only link to Limbang, Lawas and Brunei.
Fadilah added the main obstacle for the Pan-Borneo project includes limited access to labor and building materials, lack of qualified local contractors and subcontractors, difficult topographical terrains, limited funding for planned and earmarked projects, as well as policy and regulations in implementation. He also urged those in the construction sector to transition to the technology of Industrial Revolution 4.0 in automatic construction and reduce the use of unskilled labor.
Now, more than 1,000 students received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine since yesterday. Just today, 360 Form 4 and Form 5 students of SMK Tohpuan Datuk Patigi Haja Norma were inoculated at a school-turned-vaccination centre. According to the PPV Secretariat Gina Robert, the students received Pfizer jabs from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. today. Many of them were accompanied by their parents while practicing SOPs as stipulated. Muhammad Firdaus Pastini was excited to receive his shot and says the vaccine is important to prevent serious symptoms in the event of a COVID-19 infection. Meanwhile, yesterday in Dalat, 687 students from SMK Oya and SMK Dalat were inoculated at the schools. Of the total number, 359 were 16-year-olds, while the remaining 328 were 17-year-olds. More vaccination programs will be held in Dalat, including at Klinik Kesehatan Igan. Residents in MATU district can finally heave a sigh of relief. After waiting for more than a decade, their dream of seeing new buildings for SMK MATU will finally be realized. The construction of the new buildings will commence early next year, with the project costing 78.2 million ringgit.
According to Jemoreng Assemblyman Dato' Dr. Juanda Jaya, the school construction project was previously halted due to some constraints such as land intrusion and the change of government at the federal level.
Saya rasa amat gembira dengan berita daripada pihak Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia yang menyatakan bajet untuk membina baru SMK MATU yang telah cukup lama tertangguh akhirnya nampak cahaya di hujung terowong. Mesyuarat kami semalam adalah berkaitan dengan pelaksanaan. Kita juga mengambil langkah yang cukup berhati-hati di mana para penceroboh tanah FLC yang diperuntukkan oleh kerajaan negeri untuk kerajaan persekutuan membina bangunan baru SMK MATU turut dijemput untuk meminta mereka segera mengosongkan tempat berkenaan.
Dr. Juanda explained that the purpose was to ensure that the construction works can begin smoothly by the first quarter of 2022. Based on the sketch of the proposed project costing 78.2 million ringgit, the construction is only at its first phase because not the entire requirements will be covered by JPM ICU. However, the old SMK MATU buildings, which was built around 1971, will continue to be used as a teacher's quarters and other needs.
Kita berharap semua pihak membantu kita untuk menjayakan projek ini, dan kita juga amat berharap agar projek ini berjalan lancar setelah ia tertangguh beberapa kali akibat pertukaran kerajaan. Kita bersedia untuk membantu agensi-agensi persekutuan bagi menjayakan projek ini. Projek ini amat penting untuk meningkatkan keselesaan sektor pendidikan bagi anak-anak kami di kawasan daerah Matu.
For the record, the land was handed over to the Education Ministry in 2003, but the project was delayed for 18 years. The land intrusion has occurred since 2004, when palm trees were illegally planted on the government-owned land, which had been identified for the purpose of constructing new buildings for SMK Matu. The 56-acre land was bought and submitted to the Federal Land Commissioner in 2003, and out of the total area, 14 acres so far have been allocated for the new school buildings.
Hai! Jangan lupa untuk menyaksikan saya Andi Indrawani dalam Inspirasi TVS. Pelbagai kisah yang menginspirasikan anda akan saya kongsikan pada jam 8.35 malam hanya di TVS, saluran 122 Astro dan MyTV. Terlambat dah. See you guys!
Tanah semenanjung, tanah semenanjung, permata nilai.
Hello there, welcome back. And now moving on to COVID-19 development. A total of 19,550 COVID-19 cases were reported throughout the nation today. The total number shows a slight decrease compared to the 21,176 cases reported yesterday. The cumulative number of cases now adds up to 1,960,500 cases.
Sarawak continues to be the highest contributor for the sixth straight day with 3,743 cases reported today. Of the total, 3,735 or 99.79% fall under categories 1 and 2, while 8 cases or 0.21% are under categories 3, 4 and 5. Daily cases in Kuching show an increase with 1,405 cases recorded on Saturday, followed by Cebu with 420 cases, Bintulu 311, Samarahan 214, and Bau 158 cases. Sarawak State Disaster Management Committee SDMC reported 10 new deaths on Saturday. Of the 10, 3 cases were in Kuching, 2 cases in Cebu, while Lawas, Beluru, Bau, Saratok, and Tebedu each reported 1 death each. SDMC also announced the formation of 2 new community clusters in Pakan on Saturday. Meanwhile, 6 clusters ended today as there were no new cases detected or reported during the last 28 days.
As of yesterday, 72% or 16,856,812 of the adult population in the country have completed their COVID-19 vaccination. The COVID-19 Vaccine Supply Access Guarantee Special Committee JKJAV announced that 38,001,646 doses of vaccine have been dispensed so far as at yesterday, including single and 2 doses. Yesterday, 287,059 doses of vaccine were administered under the National COVID-19 Immunization Program. PIC was launched on February 24th to carry out vaccination to contain the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic nationwide. Now, the Health Ministry MOH will mobilize 200 frontline personnel from other states to help Penang following the increasing number of COVID-19 cases in the state. Its Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said the frontline personnel will include medical officers, medical assistants and nurses.
We are also mobilising and remobilising satu usaha untuk kita menghantar 200 kaki tangan barisan hadapan tambahan terdiri daripada medical officer, medical assistants dan juga jururawat. Di Pulau Pinang ini ada kekurangan jururawat yang mana kita akan remobilise daripada negeri-negeri lain and kita akan segerakan penghantaran kaki tangan.
Apart from that, he said among the initial steps taken were to approve 10 additional intensive care unit beds at the Kepala Batas Hospital and to consider building a field hospital near the Penang Hospital. Khairi added that to assist the frontline staff at public hospitals, he had been informed that private hospitals would increase its capacity, especially for COVID-19 patients. He said he had obtained the consent of private hospitals to add 300 beds, but his ministry would like to ask for an additional 1,000 beds for COVID-19 patients. Some 3 million adolescents aged 12 to 17 years old in the country are set to receive the COVID-19 vaccine before the new schooling session begins in January next year. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said the target to inoculate the group is a key performance index KPI for the ministry. Khairi added the vaccination for teenagers is set to be completed before schools reopen in January next year.
Tetapi kalau tanya tentang pembukaan sekolah untuk tahun ini, kita akan buat serentak. Besok Yang Berhormat Menteri Pendidikan akan umumkan pembukaan sekolah secara berperingkat untuk tahun 2021. Jadi untuk itu kita akan buat serentaklah program vaksinasi. Tetapi untuk awal tahun persekolahan tahun 2022, then we can give all by then.
Meanwhile, he said for those below 12 years old, parents are advised to ensure that their children are under safe supervision.
Sudah pasti untuk mereka yang berusia 12 ke bawah, kita masih lagi belum ada vaksin yang diuruskan untuk golongan kanak-kanak. Jadi mereka ini mestilah sentiasa berhati-hati. They have to exercise public health measures, masks, social distancing. Parents have to be responsible.
Medical and public health expert Dr. Jeffrey Stephan agrees with the proposal of the Ministry of Health to conduct research on the suggestion to implement booster shots for senior citizens in Sarawak. According to him, booster doses are especially suitable for senior citizens because their weak immunity means that they are easily exposed to COVID-19 infections.
Saya sangat menyokong tentang cadangan penelitian di mana Menteri Kesihatan mahu melaksanakan pemberian dos penggalak booster dose atau dos ketiga vaksin COVID-19 kepada warga emas di Sarawak. Ini kerana tahap imuniti warga emas boleh dikatakan agak lemah akibat proses penuaan yang berlaku. Kekurangan imuniti ditambah dengan kehadiran penyakit-penyakit tidak berjangkit yang lain seperti kencing manis, darah tinggi dan sebagainya akan menyebabkan golongan warga emas menjadi lebih mudah untuk mendapat jangkitan penyakit berjangkit seperti COVID-19 dan masalah jangkitan tersebut boleh menjadi sangat serius.
Although the elderly might have been inoculated, he said it was still not enough to build strong immunization levels and booster shots are still needed.
Kajian juga telah membuktikan walaupun warga emas telah disuntik dengan vaksin COVID-19, mekanisme ketahanan badan mereka masih belum dapat menghasilkan tahap imuniti ke tahap yang memuaskan yang boleh melawan jangkitan COVID-19.
Earlier, Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin in a press conference said booster shots for the elderly in Sarawak will be considered. The decision was taken into account following the continuous high number of death cases in Sarawak involving the elderly. Therefore, booster doses are one of the alternatives to increase the immunization of the elderly in order to reduce the effects of the COVID-19 infections. Now, the COVID-19 vaccination program for teenagers will be extended to states that have achieved herd immunity. According to Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Adam Baba, the focus is now to ensure all the adult population complete the vaccination. Dr. Adam said the COVID-19 jab using the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for teenagers was made based on safe, effective and quality clinical data. Adding that, the vaccination will focus on teenagers aged 16 and 17 and those with comorbidities. As for the booster shot, Dr. Adam said the matter is currently being looked into by him and Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin, who is also co-chairman of JKJAV. On the country developing its own vaccine, he said the ministry was preparing a roadmap and gathering local and foreign scientists for the purpose.
Sarawak Pay merupakan sebuah aplikasi dompet elektronik atau e-dompet yang semakin popular kini kerana ia adalah pantas, selamat dan mudah untuk digunakan. Sarawak Pay memudahkan pembayaran tanpa perlu mengeluarkan wang tunai. E-dompet ini dijamin selamat kerana ia diselia oleh Bank Negara Malaysia. Ia bukan sahaja e-dompet pertama di Sarawak, tetapi juga e-dompet pertama yang dilaksanakan di Malaysia oleh sebuah kerajaan negeri. Penggunaan e-dompet dijangka akan menjadi pemangkin keuangan pada masa depan dari segi pengurusan wang serta transaksi yang selamat dan pantas. Inisiatif ini merupakan salah satu langkah strategik bagi memacu Sarawak ke arah ekonomi digital.
Welcome to Take Me to Sarawak, the travel show that takes you on a journey for great food, culture, and meeting interesting people in little-known places. Follow me as I rediscover my homeland. Every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. only on TVS Channel 122 Astro and MyTV. Arang kita rawan.
Now on to some global updates. Today marks the 20th anniversary of September 11 attack in the United States. In his speech, U.S. President Joe Biden calls for national unity in honor of the victim of the September 11 attacks.
We honor all those who risked and gave their lives in the minutes, hours, months, and years afterwards. The firefighters, police officers, EMTs and construction workers, and doctors and nurses, faith leaders, service members, veterans, and all of the everyday people who gave their all to rescue, recover, and rebuild.
Nearly 3,000 people were killed after hijackers seized control of airplanes and used them to attack the World Trade Center's Twin Towers in New York and the Pentagon just outside Washington. Biden said the central lesson for Americans to take away from September 11 was that unity is the greatest strength.
To me, that's the central lesson of September 11th. It's that at our most vulnerable, in the push and pull of all that makes us human, in the battle for the soul of America, unity is our greatest strength.
NASA's Mars Science rover Perseverance has collected the first of numerous mineral samples that the space agency hopes to retrieve from the surface of the red planet for analysis on Earth. Tools attached to Perseverance drilled a rock core slightly thicker than a pencil from an ancient Martian lake bed called the Jezero crater, then sealed it in a titanium specimen tube inside the rover.
The feat, accomplished on September 6, marked the first such mineral sample obtained from the surface of another planet.
The presence of salts indicate that this rock was subject to water. The water percolated through the rock, and as it percolated and evaporated afterwards, it's left behind the salty residue. And why the science team is excited about that is because this rock, once returned to Earth, once returned to state-of-the-art laboratories, it can be really interrogated for its chemistry, for its mineralogy, for its age. And salts within it, we can look at the composition and look for tiny inclusions, such as tiny inclusions of liquid bubbles or bubble fluids inside those salts. That would actually give us a glimpse of the Jezero crater at the time when it was wet and was able to sustain an ancient Martian life.
The space agency plans to collect as many as 43 mineral samples over the next few months from the floor of Jezero, a wide basin where scientists think water flowed and microbial life may have flourished billions of years ago. The six-wheeled vehicle is also expected to explore walls of sediment deposited at the foot of a remnant river delta, once etched into a corner of the crater and considered a prime spot for study. NASA said among the early findings from the preliminary analysis of the samples was the presence of salt. 2 future missions to Mars, to be jointly conducted by NASA and the European Space Agency, are planned to retrieve those specimens in the next decade and return them to Earth, where astrobiologists will examine them for signs of tiny fossilized organisms. Such fossils would represent the first conclusive proof that life has ever existed beyond Earth.
Now wrapping up the Nightline, the wandering Asian elephant herd in South China's Yunnan province finally reached a traditional habitat for Asian elephants in the province. Local authorities officially announced precautions and emergency response for the wandering Asian elephant herd to be terminated.
The migrating elephant herd finished its epic journey on Friday and finally reached Ning'er Hani and Yi Autonomous County, Pu'er City, a traditional habitat for Asian elephants in China. The herd of 14 wild Asian elephants, which had been continuously monitored and guided across the Babian River Bridge, entered the vicinity of Mohe Town in Ning'er County on early Friday morning. According to experts, crossing this river means that the risk of the wandering herd being isolated from others in the species is diminished. As a result, the monitoring and guiding work at the provincial level has finally reached its conclusion. The daily monitoring was appointed to the municipal and county-level forestry and grassland departments. The roaming elephants have crossed a total of 3 rivers encompassing the Yuanjing River on August 8 and then Amung River on September 1 and finally Babian River on Friday. Now they are living in Ning'er. The provincial headquarters said that the monitoring work and measures to soothe human-elephant conflict are an achievement and a testament to China's ecological civilization. In March 2020, the herd, which was then composed of 16 wild Asian elephants, left their original habitat in Xishuangbanna National Level Nature Reserve near the borders with Laos and Myanmar. By December 2020, the herd had trekked about 300 kilometers north and arrived in Mojiang County of Pu'er City, where an elephant calf was born. The herd then continued their journey northward for about 50 kilometers and arrived in Yuanjing County of Yuxi City on April 16, 2021. But on April 24, 2 members of the herd headed back to Mojiang. In early June, a 10-year-old male elephant broke away from the marching herd and was sent back to Xishuangbanna 31 days later. In mid-June, the remaining 14 members of the herd started returning south after their northward trek of some 500 kilometers in the province.
And that wraps up the Nightline for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Henry. Stay safe and have a pleasant night.